Hello, my name is Kevin Karpowitz. I'm a pediatrician located in the city of Schenectady, New York. I'm also an advisor to the Healthy Schenectady Families program, which provides home visiting services to expectant and new parents in the county of Schenectady. Every day I see families experiencing the joy of a new child, and I know that caring for infants and toddlers is very rewarding, but can also be very challenging. I'm very aware of the traumatic effects of injury to infants, including traumatic brain injury and shaken baby syndrome. I'm also aware of the risks that lead to sudden infant death syndrome and the toll that it takes on parents. In this Safe Babies video, you will see three families. One family is coping with the aftermath of sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. The second is dealing with their child's traumatic brain injury that went undiagnosed for many years, and the third one with the devastating effects of shaken baby syndrome. You will also hear some very important prevention information for keeping infants and young children safe. I hope you remember these tips and remind those that care for your child about things they can do to keep your child safe. Enjoy this important time in your child's life as these early years go by very quickly, and remember that you are your child's most important advocate.
The American Academy of Pediatrics estimates that SIDS strikes nearly 3,000 babies in the United States each year. Here's the story of one baby and his family.
My son Declan was born July 29th, 1999. He's my third son. And he was just like such a perfect baby. He was so content that it made it easy. We would all, four of us go places and do things together.
I mean, my worst thought for my son was, oh, now he's going to be in daycare. We'll probably come up with an ear infection, a fever. The thought that my son was going to die was so far removed. I mean, he was so healthy, so happy, such a content boy.
3 months after Declan was born, his mother returned to work, leaving Declan with a trusted babysitter.
And I was probably at work a couple of hours. And I got a phone call, and it was the babysitter, and she said, "Declan's not breathing." I said, "What do you mean he's not breathing?" She says, "He's not breathing." I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And she said, "I called 911, they're here." I arrived at her house, and there was police cars, fire department, and the rescue squad was there. And I said to them, "Where are you taking my son?" And they looked at me, and they said, "We're not transporting." And that's basically how I found out that my son was dead. We're not transporting. And they asked us questions, about what he had to eat, how he had been, and they explained to me at that point that they thought it was probably a SIDS death. Did I know about SIDS? Yeah, I've heard of SIDS, but I could not have given an explanation as to what SIDS was.
We'll hear more about Declan Lantry and his family later in this tape. SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, or crib death, is the unexplained death of an infant to 1 year, a heartbreaking tragedy with its cause still unknown. Even though SIDS remains a mystery, there are a number of steps you can take to reduce your baby's risk of SIDS. Back to sleep is the single most important component in reducing the risk of SIDS. Babies may wake up more often on their backs, which may explain why they can respond better if they have trouble with their breathing. Babies get used to sleeping on their backs, which is why it's important that they sleep on their backs from the start. And the spit-up reflex that protects babies from gagging and choking works better on their backs than stomach. Use only a firm, flat mattress and safety-approved cribs for baby sleep. Be careful about sleeping with infants, especially in small or tight spaces. A small sleeping area and the sharing of that space with one or more adults or siblings increases the risk of the infant becoming entrapped in bedding or smothered during the shifting that may occur during sleep. Babies sharing a bed are especially at risk when a parent is overtired, has been drinking alcohol, or taking any drugs or medications. As an alternative to bed sharing, the American Pediatrics Academy suggests that parents consider placing the infant's crib near their bed to allow more convenient breastfeeding, parent contact, and for the return of the infant to the crib after feeding. Tummy time is recommended when babies are awake so they can develop their neck and upper body muscles. Tummy time can also help avoid flat spots on their heads. Soft objects such as pillows, quilts, comforters, sheepskins, stuffed toys, and other objects should be kept out of a baby's sleeping environment. Any loose bedding such as fluffy blankets and sheets may also pose a hazard because they may block the flow of air to the baby's face. Special pillows, mattresses, and wedges are not necessary. Place the babies to sleep so that their feet are at the foot of the crib. If blankets are to be used, they should be lightweight and tucked in around the crib mattress, reaching only the level of the baby's chest so the baby's face is less likely to become covered by bedding. Another strategy to use is sleep clothing, such as footed pajamas and one-piece sleepers, so no other covering is necessary. A crib that conforms to the safety standards of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission and the American Society for Testing Materials is a desirable sleeping environment for babies. Crib slats must be secure and equal to or less than 2 3/8 inches apart. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has issued advisories to parents and caregivers on the hazards of beanbag cushions, water beds, and adult pillows. Babies lack the coordination skills and muscle development necessary to roll over or move their heads readily and get themselves out of a dangerous position. In addition, the filling in beanbag chairs presents a significant choking hazard for children of all ages. Babies should be kept warm and out of drafts, but they should not be allowed to get too warm. Their neurological systems haven't developed enough to provide adequate warning of overheating. You need to maintain a comfortable temperature in your home. A temperature that seems warm enough for you is the best gauge to use. Whatever room temperature is comfortable for adults will be comfortable for the baby. Provide a smoke-free environment for your baby. Establish a rule that no one is allowed to smoke in areas used by your baby. Recent research indicates that the risk of SIDS doubles among babies exposed to cigarette smoke after birth. A more alarming fact is that the risk of SIDS triples for babies exposed both during pregnancy and after birth. Research also indicates that babies and young children exposed to tobacco smoke develop more colds and other diseases than babies and young children not exposed. When planning for the health and safety of your baby, remember that no smoking is good for everyone. It's been more than 2 years now since SIDS claimed the life of little Declan.
We kept saying, how are we going to deal with this anniversary? 1 year, you were going through it, the birthdays, going through everything. And I had found out that I was pregnant, and I had a due date of November 7th. And Michael, Declan, was born on October 31st, one day before the anniversary of the 1 year for Declan's death. I mean, talk about a gift. It was just kind of a miracle, and things happen for a reason. He's been a pure joy for us, and I wouldn't have done it any different. He'll never replace Declan. As a matter of fact, he's very different from Declan, but he has really helped us go through this process. Michael's over 2 years old now. He still does not have a blanket in his bed. He doesn't have a stuffed animal. I mean, it sounds maybe cruel, but he does not have a stuffed animal in his bed. There's no bumper pads in his bed. He's thrilled to death with his Mickey Mouse sheet.
Finally, it's important that you tell everyone who cares for your baby about reducing the risk of SIDS. Tell grandparents and other relatives, daycare providers, occasional babysitters, and friends that back to sleep is the #1 way to reduce the risk of SIDS. Every year, 1 million children will have a brain injury. 30,000 children will have permanent disabilities as a result of their injuries. The problems coming from a brain injury may take months or even years to show themselves, creating lifelong challenges for children and their families. Here's one family's experience.
Brock was about 23 months old, and he was at Walmart with a member of our extended family, and she had 2 other toddlers with her, and he was in the shopping buggy, in the shopping cart, and she turned around and Brock stood up in the cart and fell out on his head. We had no idea at all that it would cause problems later on because the skull had healed, you know, and the clots had dissolved. And the teacher called me in and she was real concerned because Brock couldn't hold a pair of scissors, you know, and all the other kids could. And he couldn't color in the lines. He couldn't hold a crayon the right way. It was really fine motor control issues that she was concerned with. And I just wasn't. I just excused it. I said, well, he'll eventually be able to do that, and right now I want him playing. You know, all of childhood was difficult, just in terms of, you know, being teased by other kids. He was typically pegged as the class idiot and treated as such. You know, one year, I'll never forget, they gave out awards at the end of the school year, and the teacher gave Brock the biggest pest award because he asked so many questions, you know. And so there were some really hard times, some really degrading experiences, and some things that are heartbreaking for a mother to watch a child have to go through.
Later in this tape, we'll hear more about Brock and his story. Babies and toddlers suffer traumatic brain injuries when their heads are hit hard or when their brains don't get enough oxygen for a long period of time. A baby or child might black out or appear out of it or confused for a while after suffering a brain injury. The injury might cause the baby or child to experience changes in the way he or she thinks, feels, or behaves. The brain is soft and delicate like gelatin or yogurt. When a child's head bangs on the ground or is hit by an object, the soft brain inside the skull moves back and forth and can even twist from side to side. These movements can cause damage to the connections within the brain and within brain cells that communicate with one another, allowing the child to function normally. If the brain's injury is caused because the child didn't get enough oxygen for a period of time, then brain cells actually die. Babies and toddlers are especially at risk for these injuries because their bodies are still growing. In children 5 and under, the brain is even more delicate because it isn't fully formed. If it's damaged while still trying to grow, it may not be able to recover from the injury. A child's head is bigger in size in relation to the rest of his or her body, so the head is frequently the spot where the child will hit the ground or other hard surface when he or she falls. Toddlers are just learning to walk, run, and climb, so they fall a lot more often than older children or adults. Another reason little ones are at risk is that they are too young to understand dangerous behaviors such as running into the road or climbing up on high places. In children 5 and under, most brain injuries happen because of a fall. Babies and toddlers are at risk for drowning and near-drowning incidents because they are unable to lift their heads out of water or swim. The lack of oxygen can cause a brain injury. Babies and toddlers can suffer brain injury because they were shaken. This is known as shaken baby syndrome. There's another section on this videotape where you can learn more about preventing shaken baby syndrome. You can take a number of safety precautions to reduce the risk of your baby or toddler from experiencing a traumatic brain injury. Protect your child from falls by using safety restraints on changing tables, high chairs, or other infant equipment. Use the infant seats, or for larger children, safety straps in shopping carts. Place safety gates at the tops and bottoms of stairs to prevent falls. Be sure they're securely mounted. Little ones can quickly climb up on furniture or countertops. Be sure they are supervised at all times to prevent falling. Use window locks or only open windows slightly at the bottom and at the top for fresh air to prevent children from falling through the window and to the ground below. Playgrounds can be places where children fall and hit their heads. If your child is under 5, make sure the playground equipment is for children that are young. Slides and swings designed for school-aged children are just too big for toddlers and infants. Playground areas of soft sand or wood fiber chips are safer if your child falls than are blacktop surfaces, hard-packed sand, or even grass. Make sure your child isn't wearing clothing with long ties or laces that can get caught in equipment and choke the child. Young children and babies should never be left alone near water in a bathtub, pool, or body of water like the ocean or a lake. Children can drown or be deprived of oxygen in only an inch of water, so it's really important they be watched constantly near water. Of course, it's always important that children ride in properly installed car seats in the back seat of any car. Children under 12 should always sit in the back seat of the vehicle, away from airbags. Children under 20 pounds should face the rear of the back seat and can use convertible car seats that can be reversed to face front once the children exceed 20 pounds and until they reach 40 pounds. From 41 to 80 pounds, children should use an approved booster seat. And children riding bikes, inline skates, scooters, or playing sports should always wear helmets certified by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and other protective equipment such as arm and knee pads to keep from being seriously injured. If your child falls or has been hit in the head, it's important that you seek medical attention if you notice the following. Your child loses consciousness. Your child is unusually sleepy or has a hard time waking up. Your child suddenly becomes clumsy or seems uncoordinated. Your child vomits or feels like he or she might vomit. Your child is bleeding from the ears. Your child seems to be behaving strangely or seems confused. Just to be safe, if you're not sure whether your child has a serious injury, it's best to check with your healthcare provider.
And we hit the high school level, and it was a much different story. It wasn't working okay anymore. And he made the decision that he wanted to go to Hoover High School his 10th grade year, and that frightened me. I thought, oh no, but he was determined, and so he came to Hoover High School, and that was a wonderful experience. So we again had hit a really hard place, and help just arrived in the right form. She got Brock in with a doctor who handles sleep disorders, and they did a sleep study, identified that Brock had narcolepsy, or a form of narcolepsy that is not unusual for people to have post-head injury. And that's when all the puzzle pieces